fact, and our Tea Party chapters and our Tea Party groups have put together, the Tea Party Caucus have put together some 5 wonderful resolutions, like one on water and how important water is for our state. Unfortunately, purposefully, they did not have a quorum at the resolutions committee. That's right. They purposefully did not have a quorum at the resolutions committee of the California Republican Party. That meant all the wonderful work from men like Rick Farinelli and Mark Sonnenklaar and these people that have been with us forever. All that work was postponed for 6 more months. They cannot deny us next time. These are the types of things we have got to come together and demand change and get My name's Steve. I serve in a Tea Party in the Central Valley, in Fresno, in the Central Valley area. We have a lot of great Tea Party chapters, and we've been doing a lot of talking about our relationship with the Republican Party, and what does that really look like? And I had a 2-minute conversation earlier today, said, Steve, it's time to get out. But I'll tell you this much. We are here working diligently to change the Republican Party. Amen? Let's see your hand. All right. Now, but should the day come that they treat us like they did an hour ago, and they reject our core values, and they reject our principles, we can take all of this wonderful energy and we can go somewhere else with it. Isn't that right? Okay. I'm being told to be very careful about what I say. But I think you know what I mean, right? Right now we are working diligently, and we are the hardest working group of people in this whole convention. I swear I know half of you. You guys are giving your lifeblood for this cause, and I appreciate it. We appreciate each other. But if they're going to reject us, then we will have to face that day. But until then, we are working diligently to take back conservative Tea Party principles within the California Republican Party. Isn't that right? We the people! 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 Another fantastic Tea Partier from San Diego, my friend Woody Woodrum.
Test it. There we go. We started a couple of years ago getting people together because we don't have the agendas, the political agendas that a lot of the people do. We look at the candidates. They are local candidates. They're people that we know. They're people that we trust. They're our friends. They're our neighbors. And those are the people that we want to see get into office. And you know something else? If they get into office, they get corrupted. They can still be our friends, but we don't want them there anymore. Is that right? Is that right? Is that right? Good. Now then, listen, we got a whole bunch of things here today that we're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes. We're getting the sound done. We're getting everything else set up. But I want you to realize something. Randall started this group about 2 years ago. September of last year, we had our very first meeting. We gathered some of the leaders from across the state, some of the people that are active in this across the state. We now have over 100 groups that are part of the Tea Party California Caucus. And I want to thank each and every one of those groups. We have about 200 others. This is the good news and the bad news. The bad news is we haven't had time to connect with the other 200. We're doing that now. Do you know how big we're going to be at the next convention? Yeah! How big are we going to be? Big! Big! And that's what we're going to do. We're going to make a difference. We're going to do something in the Republican Party that has not been done since the years of Reagan. We're going to go back, and we are here not to replace, not to overtake or anything like that, but to restore the Republican Party. We want to bring restoration. Like Samuel Adams, and you know something? We have some great founding fathers, we have some great forefathers, but I want you to look in the mirror tonight. You are the forefathers of the current day nation of the United States of America, and you are the ones that are making a difference. Give yourself a big hand, give yourself a big hand. All right. I guess this is going to be official. I'm up here. So we're going to get started. We're a little bit early. Okay. I've already kind of given you a little bit of introduction now. One of the things is we do have some clipboards that are going around. We want to try to get you to sign up in this. We would like you. Okay. All right, while we're waiting this list, let me ask something. Here for the first time. All right. Here for the first time. All right. Anybody here that's military? Anybody here military? If you're standing as a veteran, please stand up. Please stand up. And the rest of you, please stand for a prayer. Jimmy Ricchetti from the North Carolina Tea Party is going to lead us.
Father God, I just thank you so much for how you have raised so many people, not to save a country as much as to proclaim who you are and our founding. Father, you gave us this great land, and you gave it to our possession to hold and to follow you, and yet we, like Israel, have forgotten our roots and our heritage. As we're here together today, Father, I just ask that you would work in each one of us, because political revival will begin with a spiritual revival in each one of us. Father, may we be the one that lights the fire that spreads across this land, and that we glorify and honor you in all that we say and do today, and as we continue to work. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Amen. Remain standing, please. I have my good friend, J.D. Bennett, Marine. And by the way, if you didn't know, I'm a retired submarine sailor, so the best Marine is a submarine. But I would be honored if my friend J.D. would lead us in a pledge to our flag.
Over here to your right is a symbol of our freedom of the United States of America. The men and women that stood in this room that have dedicated their lives raised their right hand to swear an oath to protect and defend the Constitution and the symbol of our great nation. It's an honor for me to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Join me.
Okay, next, I gave a real quick introduction to Randall, so you kind of know who he is. By the way, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Woody Woodrum. I'm the president of the Eagle Ford chapter in San Diego. This man got us all together and has brought us together to this place that we are today, and he's got some ideas that are going to take us places that you would not believe, and they're all good, so I'd like to turn it over to him.
Thank you, everybody. I'm just overwhelmed with the group and with the people that are here. This is so far. In fact, today I think I was talking to Lydia, who's one of, I won't even say my right hand. I don't have any right hands. We're all equal. But so many people are making this happen. My wife, Lydia, Norm, and we have so many people that work so hard on this Tea Party California Caucus, and I'll mention a few in a second. But I mentioned today, I said, we were hoping, we were praying for small baby steps. We're blowing them away. I mean, I know we had a debacle today with the resolutions, and that's not a good thing what they did to us. They also did some things to our good friend Tim, who is running for for governor. Tim Donnelly, who's running for governor. That weren't the kind of things that people do to each other in a civil society. But they happened, and they went on. But let me tell you the impact we're having. Today, my wife and I, Mary and I, were introduced at the head table at the Condoleezza Rice luncheon, along with all the other big mucky mucks of the CRP. They know we're a force. They know they have to deal with us. They know the Tea Party is not going away. They know that we're just getting bigger and stronger. We're getting more organized. We have people in this room and in the TPCC from as far down as the border to Mexico, all the way up to the border of Oregon, and all the way over to the border to Nevada and Arizona. We've got groups everywhere, and we're picking up more groups all the time. This is what we need to do. And not just Tea Party groups. We're talking about like-minded. I know some of you are going to want to hear this come out of my mouth. We need to work with the libertarian groups. We need to work with other conservative groups that don't call themselves Tea Party. And we need to work with any other group that will work with us, but on our terms. Our terms. Not theirs. We're done compromising. We're done giving in and accepting things. It's our way, and we are going to make a change. We're not here to take over. We're basically here to for a rebirth of the Republican Party, because this is our party we want to have. Am I all done? I've got 1 minute? 30 seconds left. Let me tell you real quick. This all happened last March. Lydia and I and Norm from San Luis Obispo came to Sacramento to the convention there, and we were pretty much blown away. We went, oh my gosh, this is the social event. This is not any kind of a political movement or a political event. So we started walking around, and kind of under our breath we would say, hi, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm from the San Luis Obispo Central Committee, and I'm Tea Party. Damn, if a lot of people didn't say, so am I, Tea Party. So we knew that the interest and the people were here. And even the people that we call rhinos, they know something's wrong. They know that it's broken. And they know that even though they're being told something, that is not what is happening. That they're being told one thing and something else is actually happening behind the scenes. So am I done? The end. Okay, so that's how we were born. Basically, we're a year old in March. March is when this whole thing was hatched, so we're a year old, and we're only going to get bigger and stronger. Thank you, Woody.
Thank you very much. Big hand for Randall. And where's his wife here? Mary? Mary, would you stand up? A huge, huge applause for this woman because she lets me go out and play with us. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to set down a couple of rules here. I know it's kind of warm. We asked to have the air conditioner turned up if we can, but we have a couple of speakers that we're going to have. They're going to take a little bit of time for Q&A. Steve is going to, where's Steve at? Oh, the other Steve. Okay. Steve Brandau is going to have a microphone. We'll ask people to come up here to the center. You have 1 minute to ask a question. We don't want a story. We don't want your life history. We want you to ask questions because a lot of people have questions. I will cut you off after 1 minute, and we'll go to the next person. One of the things that we started looking at was the things that are going on. We have weaponized a lot of areas of our government. One of them is the IRS. And people say, well, why is that happening? Why are these things happening? Why do we have citizens that seem to be attacked by a lot of this? 2009, my wife Donna found it online. Terrorism and criminal extremism. You can find this out on our table, page 63. Political movement. Patriot movement, I'm sorry, patriot movement. The patriot movement is a general term used by its members to describe the collective movements and individuals on the extreme right wing. You are a target.
Who published that, Woody?
Oh, by the way, this was published by the DOJ, by the Department of Justice. And we have one of the people that has been a huge target by the IRS. You have probably seen her on Fox News and CNN and CSNBC and NBC and all these other alphabet soups lately. She has done she's been before Congress on a couple of occasions. And this is one of the reasons that Catherine has been targeted. Catherine has been a friend of ours for a number of years. She has been in this movement for a number of years. And she is one of the largest targets out here. I would like to introduce you to our friend, Catherine Engelbrecht.
Wow. Thank you. Who would have done a standing ovation for being a target of our government? Can you hear me? I'm trying to find the balance, right? Can you hear me? Seeing the march through the hall here and up and around through the people, that was pretty great. I started an organization called True the Vote in 2009 as a result of just seeing problems inside the polls. It's supposed to be a very simple, very low-key, local thing. But prior to starting True the Vote, and reminded me a lot of being swept up in your wave there through the convention center. Sorry, raise it? Okay. All right, then for those of you that have the high pitch, be ready. When I started, I had never done anything political. Quick show of hands, how many of you have never done anything like this before Tea Party ever? My brothers and sisters. I didn't know what I was doing. I just felt like something's got to give, and I'm trying to raise a family, and I've got elderly and sickly parents, and something's got to happen. But one of my clearest memories that just connected back to my heart, seeing you guys with the signs out there today, was the first time I went to go buy poster board for my own posters, not my children's projects. And I wrote on a piece of poster board, "Cut the pork." This was like back during the bailouts, and can you even, when we were paying for our neighbors' mortgages, and then there was cash for punkers, and then there was too big to fail, and doesn't that seem like that was 1,000,000 years ago? Look at what has happened. So in any case, I got the glitter paint, And I had put the glue, because, you know, all true poster connoisseurs, you know, you go over with the Sharpie, and then you put the glue on top of that, and then you sprinkle the glitter on. And there's glitter all over the kitchen floor. And my husband came home, and he looked down at me, and I looked up at him, and he said, "You have lost your mind." But I'll tell you, it was truly the first time in a long time that I recognized that I had a voice too. And I hope that you take from that experience, your voice really is so important. But the prayer, who gave the prayer here this morning? That was lovely. It really is about remembering that there's something much bigger afoot here. There is no explanation but by the hand of God that all this stuff is happening. That it started and that it continues into this day. But I will give you this word of encouragement. God's really partial to remnants. So think about that, California. So what's happened since my cut the pork moments? Well, I, as I say, went to go and work inside the polls because we wanted to do something. And you know, if you can't, the fact of the matter is you can only be just outright angry for so long. At some point, that passion has to translate into action. And so we decided, well, there was a need for people to go work at the polls. And we knew that there was a shortage of volunteers. And mind you, if I forget to say it later, know this, that there are some great organizations in this room today with leadership here in this room that I'll introduce to you that are looking for upwards of 10,000 volunteers across the state to make sure you have all of your polling places fully manned. And that is it's an imperative. Because everything else that happens, from all of the individual candidate signs and all the resolutions and all of the hopes and dreams, all of that presupposes a free and fair vote. In California's election laws, observation changes things. And when you have people there that, you know, it's not about, I mean, True the Vote is completely nonpartisan. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's let it be a free and fair fight. Let the best man win, but let it be free and fair. So, as Woody said, I recently testified before Congress, and what in the world would somebody who was, you know, a few years ago putting glitter paint on a Cut the Pork poster have to do in front of Congress now? Well, I made a tremendous miscalculation. I thought that I should actually try to do things the right way by applying to be a nonprofit organization. Who'd have thunk? Now, I know there are a lot of leaders in here, and if you filed for a C3 or a C4, there's all these different kinds of classifications of nonprofits, and we have two. We have a local community group called King Street Patriots that's a C4, and then True the Vote, which is a C3. So we filed both applications back in July of 2010. And usually those applications take 3-4 months to return. It took, for True the Vote, it took 3 years in suing the IRS, 3+ years in suing the IRS, and in that time period, I've answered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions that have no bearing on whether or not we're in keeping with nonprofit status, but an awful lot of bearing on political blood sport. And so we continue to answer these questions. We continue to turn these things into the IRS. But that wasn't all that was going on, because in my personal life, all of a sudden the IRS started knocking on our door. My husband and I have had a oil field services company for 15 years. And at the time, we'd had it for 15 years. Never been audited. And sometimes you think, well, you draw the short straw, stuff happens. It turned out over the next couple of years, we were going to draw a lot of short straws, back to back to back to back. But we went through the audit, and that was fine, and we got a refund, so that's all right. But then they came back and audited us for 2 years personally. Now, there are audits, and then there are audits. And we had an audit, like they wanted to go to see our family farm, which was out of town, and then they wanted to count bales of hay, and they wanted to look at the new fence line. And things that were, mind you, we got a refund there too, so things that they, there was no great conspiracy or cover-up, they were just trying to make life difficult. At the same time, and in rapid succession, we had OSHA come visit our shop. We had the FBI on 5 separate occasions come into the King Street world and ask about people that were coming to attend events. We had the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And then, interestingly, the day after the election in 2012, an anonymous complaint was called in on our shop from a, it's kind of like the Texas version of the EPA. It's Equality and Environmental Control Group. They came out, and you have to. All these people, all these agencies that came out, they did the right thing. But at some point, you have to wonder, right? Who knew what when? Here's my point. It's often said that dogs don't bark at parked cars, right? And this is a raceway in here, my friends. We are living in days of not only history, but in days of miracles. When you get that feeling in your gut that tells you the odds are stacked against you, but you feel like you've got to push, take one more step because you never know what lucky break may come your way, trust that instinct. Because I was called to work with election integrity. But there are so many callings in this room, and wherever your calling is, your country needs you, my friends. For too long, we have lived lives, I believe, where we thought that it would be enough to vote. And essentially vote, you hire the right people to go do the work, right? And you trust them to do the right thing. And then you can go to work yourself and raise your kids and have a garden and go skiing and hang out. And those are all wonderful things, I'm not saying stop them. But from now and for the foreseeable future, I think that we all need to be very mindful that we still have to live our lives and be examples and be role models and raise our kids and go to church and volunteer and do all those things. But we all need to reserve a little bit of our lives for civic duty as a standard operating procedure for the life of an American. What grew quite by accident out of Houston, Texas, turned into something much larger because as we were seeing problems and were being pounced upon by everybody from the Texas Democrat Party who sued me 4 weeks after I filed those nonprofit papers, all the way through to the new Black Panther Party, when all of that started happening, all of a sudden people from across the country started calling us and saying, that's what you guys are seeing? That's what we're seeing too. Can we work together? I didn't know what we were doing, but I said, sure, let's all work together. We'll build a national movement. And we built something that included training and research and advocacy. And I am so proud today to be able to introduce you to my very good friend, Linda Payne, who I hope is in here, who runs Election Integrity Project. Into the mix of this right from the beginning. The very first True the Vote National Summit we ever had, Linda was there and she said, don't give up on California. Don't give up on California. And today, just in meeting, I think a new slogan was coined, California, we're not lost, we're occupied. Who is trying to build signatures around the idea that you should have photo voter identification. Imagine that. So make sure you get plugged into both these organizations because, again, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, we can do all the good work in the world, and if it's all unraveled at the ballot box when you don't have to prove you are who you say you are, when it's a political minefield for most elected to actually hold the line, it takes citizens. We have forgotten it has always been the citizens' responsibility to run our elections. So we need to get back in those polls, and we need it in a big way here in California. So I know I want to save some time for questions, and I'm glad to take any questions you may have, but I would just like to say thank you so much for the invitation to come here today. God bless each and every one of you. God bless California.
Is this a wonderful lady? Do we love people like that? This is what we are about. Okay. Here's the rules. We do have rules, I hate to say. Steve is as big as I am, and he's meaner than I am, and he's got less hair than I do. We would like for you, if you have a question for Catherine, keep it very, very short. Steve will come around, he will hold the microphone, he's not going to give it to you. We want you to tell us who you are, the group that you're with, and your question. No history, no background. That's the rules. Otherwise, you get a duck call.
Don't get the duck call. Okay, does anybody have a question?
Barbara Sloan, Elk Grove Tea Party. How did you know Andrew Breitbart?
Thank you, Barbara. That's a sweet question. I met Andrew when all kind of calamity was happening in Harris County. I have more than minute cancer, right? Because I think Andrew Breitbart. And so I'll make it quick. There weren't a whole lot of people willing to stand beside me at that point. And lo and behold, and when I say that point, let me frame this for you. There were people coming out of the woodwork saying that True the Vote had become the largest voter suppression effort ever in the history of the country. As a result of some of our findings that we turned over to the tax assessor collector, which is the department that runs elections in Harris County, things had become very public, and although there was never any direct correlation shown, all of Harris County's election equipment was burnt to the ground. Stunningly, on the same morning that we were supposed to have a press conference, 10,000 machines, $30 million in equipment, it left Harris County, the third largest voting bloc in the nation, where Los Angeles is number one, without any equipment, without any collateral materials, and the heat was being ratcheted up like you cannot believe. Anyway, Andrew. So Andrew called, and an immediate friendship was born. He said, I've read what's going on. I want to help you. Let me be your rodeo clown. He said, you keep going to the store, I'll be out front. And from that moment on, he became one of my dearest friends, and I miss him greatly.
I've been audited, and I just wondered twice, and I just wondered how long it took you to settle with the IRS.
Well, it went pretty quick because, as I say, we got refunds, but it was I don't even know. It's a great question. It was such a blur. 6 to 9 months, something like that, of them coming out constantly. Here's something I remember: my analyst with the IRS was pregnant, and she wasn't pregnant by the time we ended. So there's a benchmark.
Catherine, Nancy Garcia from the Nevada County Tea Party.
Oh.
Sorry. Has anybody checked how many people who are on boards of directors or coordinators or tea parties are being personally audited?
That is an excellent question. I don't know that that's been done, but there is, I will tell you, an effort coming together to talk about just that, because the fact of the matter is, I think if we all took time to just show of hands about the freaky stuff that may have happened to you, what you find is a lot of people don't want to mention, they don't want to say it out loud. There's still a sense of sort of shame and fear, which is, mind you, the goal. That's what they want you to do. And for 3 years, I didn't say a word about anything that was happening to me, because I thought that was the best way to keep my head down, was the best way to keep my family safe. And what I learned was the best way to keep your family safe is to stand up and take your story to the American people, because there's strength in numbers that's wrong. They're doing it wrong. The Tea Party hook here real quick.
Time for maybe 2 or 3 more real quick questions. I'm Tom Sellers, the Contra County Tea Party. I know you're from Texas, so that's a normal state. You probably weren't persecuted by your state government, but have other people you've associated with in other states that aren't as normal as Texas, you know, Connecticut, New York, California, Oregon, have any of those people been targeted by the state governments that are sympathetic to the Obama tyranny?
That's a great question too. Off the top of my head, I am most familiar, listen to this, I'm most familiar with federal government persecution. I'm sure that that's the case. I can't give you any examples, but I will say that.
I got one.
Well, then this is poll worthy, I believe. You know, you really need to know Sun Tzu, Art of War, first rule: know your enemy. You got to know what's happening. You've got to know what's happening, because to stay in our silos, this is what Woody was talking about earlier. You got to work together. You got to talk these things out, because what is happening threatens the very fabric of our republic.
Good afternoon, Debbie Boyd, Los Angeles Tea Party, California Caucus. And I just attended right prior to this one of the workshops reaching Latino voters. So I'm just going to read you this little thing that and it comes to you. So my question is going to be, what is your response to this? The topic came up in how to reach Latino voters, a very real issue for our party. How do you best approach the topic of voter ID when speaking to Latino communities and Hispanic voters? At which point, a Latino Republican responded that he's against voter ID for the reason that in the Latino community, they see it as an insult and an indication that they're being distrusted in terms of citizenship. So by asking a Latino voter for his or her ID.
We got it.
Okay.
I absolutely do, but it's a great question. A couple things very quickly. First, the United States is the only industrialized country in the world that doesn't use photo voter identification. Okay? Because in Texas, you know, we've got the border issue too, and I got sick to death of hearing about this spin that the Latino community was not in favor of photo voter identification. And I thought to myself, now you know, Mexico has really strict voting policies. So I went to Mexico to learn what they do. And when I showed them the voter registration card that we used in Texas, they laughed. They laughed. And in fact, I have video. That chronicles the 2 days that we spend with the IFE, with the International Institute of Federal Elections there in Mexico. Guys, don't believe the hype. People Republican and Democrat want to know that their vote counts and is counted, and it does not make sense that I have to show my ID to check into this event. I have to show my ID to get my ears pierced or buy Sudafed, but I don't have to show it. You know, well, somehow we all put our angel halos on when we walk in the polling place and decide who controls the free world. Yeah.
Siskiyou County Chairman, the first county chairman of the Republican Party in the state of California with the Tea Party orientation. I can't tell you how great it is to see this. A few weeks before the last November election, my wife and I were on, and I can't tell you how that shot our vote effort down in Siskiyou County. I would ask you, could you hold this group? How many of us got those hits? I'd surely appreciate to see that number.
Sure. You know what? I got the hits like to the IRS, you mean, or just anything? Okay, I'll ask the question, I'll broaden it out a little bit, because we are, you know, this government, they're equal opportunity offenders. So let's just say, even beyond the IRS, the EPA, OSHA, BADIT, equal opportunity employment, whatever kind of freakish thing may have happened to you since you got involved and stuck your head out of the sand, you just slip, as they say in church, just slip your hands up. Okay, that's too high. The statistical probability that in this room, but there's strength in numbers. There's strength in numbers. And you know, back to the Latino question just real quick, because this is a call to action that I think everybody here would resonate with, and now I've got to go. The little known secret, when you become a naturalized citizen, and in California, as in Texas, you are going to naturalize hundreds of thousands of citizens between now and Election Day. They register to vote on site. There aren't a whole lot of pro-liberty organizations inside of those facilities registering. And those new Americans fought to come here to live the dream. And the first thing they meet are are organizations that will tell them whatever siren song they need to hear to capture that vote. I would encourage you, seek out Linda. Think about ways to get inside of that community, because our principles in this country are what people cross oceans for. We just need to be able to stand and defend them. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Now we know who all the extremists and terrorists are, and you're looking at us. And I want to thank you as an audience for participating in this, and I want to thank you for for keeping the questions very short. Real quick, before we start, before we go to our next speaker, which is going to be Steve Frank. I'm sorry. Yes, go. Do me a favor, I understand, but I would like to have that information sent to me or to Randall, and we will get that out. We'll get the factual information out to all of the Tea Party Caucus members. Absolutely. Our next speaker, Steve Frank, is going to come up and he's going to talk to us for a couple minutes. And he's going to talk specifically about the political objectives and the strategy. Before we do that, I have a couple of people that are in here. We've got Steve Brandau. I'm elected. These are people that are elected officials and people that are supporting the Tea Party movement that are actually in office. And this is what we want each and every one of them. We got Steve Brandau. We got Rick Frannelli. We got let's see, I saw Joel Anderson. Senator Anderson was here a little bit earlier. Jim Patterson. Where's Jim at? I saw him just a minute ago. Jim. Okay. Tim Donnelly, our next governor. Okay. We also have candidate Igor Bergman. We have Zachary Taylor. We have Chris Mitchell was in here just a moment ago. I saw Chris come in. So I just wanted to mention a couple of people that I saw that came into this. Our next speaker is Steve Frank. Steve has been with us since the very beginning. He is, I lovingly call him the godfather of the Tea Party California Caucus. And he's going to talk to us about the political objectives, strategies, and he's going to talk about our statewide movement. Steve.
As I like to say on Brian Sussman's show on Wednesday mornings, what a great day in America. One day less of Obama as president. The Tea Party is organized community by community. It works community by community. But our legislators, our statewide office holders, are all elected district-wide and statewide. And until the Tea Party California Caucus was started, Tea Parties in Chico would do their thing, and Sutter would do their things, and up and down the state, each Tea Party would do their own thing. Now is the time to be politically sophisticated, to work together. And what we have done is we have created a statewide political infrastructure for the state of California. Woody and I are the co-chairs of that effort. You see a map right up here to my left. We have 9 regions in the state of California. We have a region chair for each of those regions. Now we're working on getting county chairs. Then we're going to get city and town chairs, and eventually we will be the largest grassroots operation that is not only large in numbers, raw numbers, but large in numbers of people who have been trained to win elections on the ground. I'm not telling any stories out of school. We all know this to be fact. Our candidates are not the most funded candidates. And if you're not the most funded candidate, you have to be the most organized, the most trained, the most educated, dedicated, and motivated grassroots organization in the state. I can tell you without hesitation, my first CRP convention was in July of 1966. And except for the time I served in Vietnam, I've been to all the conventions since then. And I will tell you, I've been a member and a president of a statewide organization. I've been active in a lot of different groups, and I've been parliamentarian for the state party for 8 years, no longer. And I will tell you, there is no political operation in the state that is ongoing. We have a special election like Randy Vidak, and all of a sudden everybody says, now what do we do? Who do we send emails to? And they start anew. Our goal with the Tea Party California Caucus is when we know there's going to be a special election, we can send out a notice to all our people saying the local Tea Party support this candidate. We have a walk a week from Saturday. Everyone needs to be there, and we'll give the guidance to that. We want to win for Tea Party candidates. Now, Woody and I would like to ask a favor. We have our regional chairs. After this meeting is over, you can see Woody, you can see me. We want to know if you'd be willing to be either your county chair or your city chair. So please come up to us, give us a little slip of paper with your name, email address, phone number, and the county and city that you live in. Our goal is to have 24 more county chairs before we leave this convention tomorrow. Here's the deal. We are going to have training sessions throughout the state. So the good folks from Uvalde don't have to go down to Fresno, although Fresno's a good place. The people from San Diego don't have to travel up to LA, which is not a good place. And so, I live in Ventura County. It's so-so. But we're going to have training sessions by the end of July. We will have 9 training sessions throughout the state. And we will have the only well-trained, educated, dedicated, motivated, grassroots operation in the Republican Party, or let me put it a different way, this side of the unions, that the state has ever seen. We know what we're doing. We need your help. That being said, we also have a goal of strengthening local clubs, starting new clubs where there's a geography that needs it, and we need your help for next September at LAX, where the next CRP convention will be held. At the last convention, there were 800 voters. Big deal, right? 498 were proxies, pretty much controlled by one man. By his one vote, he controls the whole party on Sunday morning. We want to take that control back to the Republicans and the conservatives in California. Lori Drake is going to head up that activity. Woody and I, of course, are going to help her. The regional chair is going to help her. Let me introduce to you our proxy chair, Lori Drake.
How many people in here are Tea Party state delegates to the Republican Party? Let's give them all a round of applause. So here's the situation. A lot of people get confused about what is a proxy. So basically, I want to try to simplify it. A proxy is simply an absentee vote. Not everybody can go to every convention because sometimes they're in the north and sometimes they're in the south. So if you are not able to go to the convention, we need to collect your votes, your absentee votes, so that somebody who is at the convention that you trust, that would vote the way you would vote, according to your principles, can vote for you. You may notice just before every convention, whoever is a state delegate, you get these notices in the mail constantly from CRP saying, you know, XYZ, and here's a proxy form. Don't forget to send it back to us. If you send it back to them, somebody will get your vote that it would not vote the way according to your principles. So we're asking that you send that to us instead, and we'll give instructions on how to do that. We will do that through your regional and county leaders, so that for every county we'll be covered, and we will have those votes from the Tea Partiers who are state delegates like yourselves but can't go. So that is underway. So look out for communication. If you're a regional chair, you'll probably get a phone call from me. If you're a county leader, you may get a phone call from me too during the next time period before the next convention. So that's what we're going to do. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So once again, afterwards we're looking for people to sign up, and Steve has done a great amount of work on this, and I really appreciate everything he's done. He's been a great leader in this. I also saw a while ago, I saw Assemblyman Brian Jones standing outside, so he's another great Tea Party supporter. And by the way, over here in the corner, sitting here very quietly, we have the founder of the Doctors National Tea Party Organization, Dr. Wayne Iverson. I'm sorry, it's not Obamacare. It's the non-affordable We Don't Care Act. All right, next we have Steve Brandow. Steve is city councilman, and this guy is the epitome of the Tea Party movement. He came in, he got engaged with the process. I met Steve a couple of years ago in Phoenix. We had to go to Phoenix to meet each other. He lives in Fresno, I live in San Diego, so we met in Phoenix. Go figure. But anyway, he has done a great amount of work with the Tea Party organization. He is now on the city council. They've done a lot of work with their central committee in Fresno, and we're going to give Steve a couple of minutes to talk to us and tell us about what's going on with him.
Thank you, Woody. Is that my timer right there?
Yeah, you're out.
Lydia, don't start me until he gets this thing correct. All right, then I'm going to have you go read that poster for me when you get a chance. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so thrilled, Jenny. I mean, 5 years ago, this movement started. Almost not a week goes by, I read some, I choose my words correctly, I read some article that tells me that this movement is dead. I'm telling you, the Tea Party movement is not dead. It's more alive than it was five years ago. Now, it really is. It's getting deeper and wider. And when you see things like what Steve Frank just explained about this organizing the state of California, that's where the shift is. I do realize you don't see us out on the street corner with pom-poms and signs quite as much as we used to. And I love those days. But if it takes putting a map together of the state of California and organizing an overthrow of the Republican Party in the state of California, how do you do that? Revitalization. Doesn't like that word overthrow. I see that in there. Woody, I wanted you to read, this is one of my favorite founding fathers, Sam Adams, not just because of the beer, but because of who he is. Woody, would you read this quote? It's very popular, we all know it, but let's hear it again, Woody.
It does not require a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen to set brush fires in people's minds.
I'm going to be real quick because I'm going to try and shave off a minute, and I can give my minute to Congressman McClintock. But I do have have something very important to say, and it ties in with what I'm talking about, is the growth, the maturity of the Tea Party movement. I ran as a Fresno City Councilman, wide open Tea Party. In North Fresno, you can do that, and I realize you don't all have that luxury. But people everywhere want to hear of men and women who stand for values and principles and run on those. Is that right? I want each one of us in this room to rededicate to our efforts for this movement. And here's what I would like to see. I believe everybody that wherever you came from San Diego, Fresno, Northern California, you found your way at this convention in this room. I'm telling you, you are qualified to be an office holder. Now I know that sounds shocking. My day job, I've got a carpet cleaning company. I'm a blue collar carpet cleaner. You guys all have people who clean your carpets and do those type of jobs. I'm one of those guys. And you can do that. You can run for office. And you have to take baby steps. And I'm here to challenge you. You can be a city council person. You can serve on your Republican Central Committee. How many people here are currently serving on the Republican Central Committee? Thank you very much. These areas, and even a Fresno City Councilman is not a glorious situation, but these small areas are where we can apply our values, and in time, we can retake over our country. And that's what I really believe is the next generation of the Tea Party movement. And I would also add boards and commissions. As a councilman, I get to name people to boards and commissions. Become friendly with an elected official, begin to serve, and ask if you could serve on a COG, a council of government, and you can overthrow some of the Agenda 21 aspects that are moving across our state, that would be dynamic, and nobody would ever hear your name except those of us in this room and the Lord above. But there are many places to serve, and I want to challenge you today. If you're not, and I mean in elected position, if you could get named to a commission, if you could serve on your central committee, if you could run for local office, it would be dynamic, and I believe that's where the grassroots is really going to make the great change. I do believe in fighting the national causes. I really want to see I know we'll see a new president. I want to see a great dynamic conservative in 2016. Yeah. I agree. We all want that. But a more honest, realistic place to start is where we live every single day and where we live our lives and where we raise our families. Do you understand that? Yes. I want to challenge you today. I want to finish with a passage of scripture that I believe mirrors what Sam Adams was saying, and then I'm going to hand this microphone over. In Galatians it says, "Do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap a harvest if we faint not." Thank you.
That's awesome. I mentioned Brian Jones. He's in the back of the room. If you guys are having a Tea Party meeting, this is a guy that will show up and talk to you. He will share and go over to the best of some of the people that we have. I'd like to introduce my friend that's going to introduce our next speaker, Rick Marinelli, Supervisor of Madera County. Rick, that's yours.
Thank you, thank you. How many people know Congressman McClintock? How many people feel that he's the Ronald Reagan of California that we wish we had as governor? I want to mention one thing real fast, because I'm the one that wrote the water resolution in here that they didn't look at today. You also have voter integrity in here too, that they didn't look at today and talk about. You know, what a shame. Our Republican Party will not even listen to the people. It's a shame. One other thing. I love this, our logo here. Have you really looked at it? The elephant's crying. Look at him. It looks like he's crying. Let's make him smile by this fall, okay? With further ado, my friend, Tom McClintock.
How about, there we go. I want to begin by addressing something that Rick said. I know that all of us from time to time get awfully frustrated with the Republican Party. I've often said that you know, I'm a lifelong Republican, but my loyalty is not party. My loyalty is to the principles of the American founding. My loyalty to the Republican Party goes in only so far as it is loyal to those principles. But we must also understand, as frustrated as we are, we need to understand our country is at a critical crossroads. The question that this generation will answer for good or ill is whether the Constitution will continue to stand. And as frustrating as it might be, the Republican Party is the only organized political party that now stands in defense of those constitutional principles. Reagan addressed these frustrations back in 1975. He said, "Americans are hungry to feel once again a sense of mission and greatness. I don't know about you, this is Reagan speaking. He says, I don't know about you, but I'm impatient with those Republicans who after the last election rushed into print saying we must broaden the base of our party when what they really meant was to fuzz up and blur even more the differences between ourselves and our opponents. Our people look for a cause to believe in. Is it a third party we need? Or is it a new and revitalized second party raising a banner of no pale pastels but bold colors, which make it unmistakably clear where we stand on all the issues troubling the people? Let us show that we stand for fiscal integrity and sound money, and above all, for an end to deficit spending with ultimate retirement of the national debt. That is our party's mission, and that is our generation's responsibility. What has happened to our country has happened on our generation's watch, and it is our generation's responsibility to set things right, which brings all of you to this moment in time, to this meeting in conjunction with the Republican Convention. You know, when I looked out at the long sea of faces in 2012 election night, I was trying to find some rays of hope, and there were two that were immediately obvious. I pointed out, number one, the American people are about to get a 4-year graduate-level course in Obamacare and Obamanomics, and at the end of that course, they are going to be a lot sadder and a lot wiser. And second, I pointed out that the very people who had been Obama's strongest supporters were precisely the same people who had been hurt the most by his policies. Think about that. That's a political disconnect. It cannot stand. Well, it took the rollout of Obamacare to accomplish that, but now there is every indication that this nation is having an epiphany as they come face to face with the reality of this administration and its policies. Since December, we have watched a dramatic shift away from Obama by young voters, by African American voters, by Hispanic voters, as every week he's now hitting new lows in public approval. We've watched Republican victories where we haven't seen them in years, and sometimes decades. But perhaps most meaningful of all, last January, the Gallup poll reported that fully 2/3 of the American people think that the federal government is too big and too powerful. Now, two-thirds of the American public rarely agrees on anything. And yet 2/3 of the American people have now, through their answer to that question, revealed that they are closet Tea Partiers. And should we really be surprised? Obamacare was the catalyst, of course, but this has been a wake-up call to millions of Americans that they've been conned. You know, the Democrats promised that Obamacare would lower the cost of our health care by $2,500 on average. Instead, the recent report has increased it by an average of $3,500. Of course, they promised if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. And yet now millions more Americans have lost their insurance than have gained it under Obamacare. The Democrats promised that it would provide insurance to the uninsured, and we just now received the report that 90% of the uninsured remain uninsured. And they're joined by millions of Americans who had health plans that were canceled because of Obamacare. They promised that it would create jobs, and now we learn that the cost of Obamacare is the equivalent loss of 2.5 million American jobs, and the Democrats tell us, oh, that's good news, because it means we've liberated 2.5 million Americans from having to work. You know, Jonah Goldberg mentioned, reminded him, you know, the publication, The Onion, that great satirical piece. He said after IBM had announced massive job layoffs, The Onion ran the headline, IBM announces it is emancipating 8,000 wage slaves. You can't make this stuff up. When we warned, when the Tea Party warned that you wouldn't be able to keep your health plan or your doctor, we were called extremists. When we warned that this would increase the cost of health care, we were called demagogues. When we warned that this would hurt the economy, we were called ignorant. And as you know, all of those warnings that we made have now been proven true with terrible result. But there is good news in that. A Southern California Democratic campaign consultant earlier this year sent out a memo to his clients after the Obamacare rollout had begun. He made 3 points in that memo. 1, Obamacare is an unmitigated disaster and it is only going to get worse from here. 2, we Democrats own Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel. And 3, we are screwed. Or words to that effect. The Obamacare disaster is causing Americans now to wake up and to see other dangers that have approached them in their sleep. You know, we've been slowly losing the debate over the proper role and size and scope and power of government, little by little, since Ronald Reagan left the national debate a generation ago. But Americans are now learning, to their deep regret, what has come of abandoning those uniquely American principles of individual liberty, constitutionally limited government, and personal responsibility that built the most prosperous, powerful, and happy society in the history of human civilization. And that's the real question of which Obamacare is just a part, just a catalyst. Now, they're now looking, American people are now looking at 5 years of policies that are predicated on unprecedented government spending and borrowing and taxation that's literally robbing our children of their futures. We're reeling under the weight of unprecedented regulatory enactments. Congress was recently told that Americans are now 10 times more likely to be tried before a bureaucratic agency than before a federal court. We're watching the government block the American people from developing the vast energy resources of our country that could fulfill the dream of American energy independence. But most importantly, we're watching the Constitution and its Bill of Rights cast aside, and I don't need to tell any of you in this room about that. The Tea Party has felt the brunt of it. It is one of the most feared and powerful agencies of the federal government was directed to harass and intimidate ordinary Americans whose only offense was they wanted to gather together to speak out in the great public debate that decides the future of our country. In last May, Americans awoke to the news that the NSA and other government agencies, in direct violation of the Fourth Amendment, have been seizing the telephone and internet records of millions of Americans without warrants, due process, or probable cause. We've seen reporters who've been trying to get to the bottom of the Benghazi scandal harassed by raids on their homes and their families. We've watched the government attempt to force individuals and churches to perform acts utterly repugnant to the tenets of their faith. And we've watched the fundamental structure of the Constitution itself degraded to the point that the basic checks and balances that protect our freedom are breaking down. Now, under Article 1, only Congress may make laws or declare war. Yet this president has asserted the unprecedented authority to rule by decree, with pen and phone, as he says, even imposing laws that Congress has explicitly refused to enact. He's repeatedly asserted the authority to launch unprovoked attacks on foreign nations without congressional approval. Under Article 2, the President has a responsibility to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Yet this President has asserted sweeping powers to unilaterally nullify laws that he dislikes and to pick and choose who must obey those laws and who need not obey them. And Article 3 of the Constitution establishes the courts and assures every American the right of due process. The right of due process is not executed when individuals are thrown before executive agency tribunals rather than the federal courts. It comes down to this. Much of the structure of the American Constitution has preserved our liberty for more than 225 years. It's contained the unwarranted expansion of governmental power, and that has preserved the natural and individual rights of every American, has simply been allowed to decay. The form's still there, the institutions continue to function, but they no longer serve their principal role to protect the rule of law and the liberty of the people. Now, looking back on the wreckage of the Roman Republic, the great historian Edward Gibbon observed that the principles of a free constitution are irrevocably lost when the legislative power is dominated by the executive. That was the epitaph of the Roman Republic. Let that not be the epitaph of the American Republic. The rot may have begun before this administration, but during this administration it has become a crisis. Now I want you to think about this. All of the laws that are passed under the Constitution have an elaborate enforcement mechanism. You break any of those laws, a policeman is going to ultimately show up at your doorstep with a gun. But the Constitution itself has no such enforcement mechanism. The Constitution was designed to be internally self-enforcing, with the powers of government clearly divided among three separate and equal branches of government. But this self-enforcement mechanism can only work when the powers are evenly divided, when those who exercise those powers are devoted to the Constitution, and when we, the people, insist on it. Those checks and balances are no longer working because they're no longer being honored by those that we elect. You remember last fall, House Republicans, using their legitimate authority under the Origination Clause, attempted to delay the Obamacare train wreck by using the power of the purse. Yet Republicans were blamed when the Senate refused to act or negotiate on any appropriation sent them by the House and instead shut down the government. And the irony is this: the president is now unlawfully doing what the Republicans tried lawfully to do last year. But if the checks and balances are no longer working, what's left? Now there's one thing left, and it has never failed us. It is the American people awakening from their slumber, rising up and demanding through the votes they cast for their elected officials that they either honor and obey the Constitution or get the hell out of our government. is our responsibility as Americans. It's what we do when we vote. It's that single act upon which the survival of our Constitution and our Republic ultimately depends. And that vote comes about after a great national debate. And I don't mean the debate in Congress. That's just a reflection of a much larger debate that's going on right now among the American people. That's the debate that's going on over backyard fences and family dinner tables and coffee at Starbucks. And it is upon the outcome of that debate that our future as a nation will be decided. And that is why the administration has tried so desperately to intimidate and harass and discredit and vilify the Tea Party. It's because you are having a profound impact on that debate. For the last 4 years, the Tea Party has tried valiantly to awaken our fellow citizens to the danger to their prosperity and their freedom before it's too late. And for your trouble, you have been targeted for harassment and intimidation and retribution by the IRS. You have been vilified by the left and its reliable mouthpieces in the media. And you have been marginalized by a political establishment that long ago lost its own way amidst the seductions of influence and power. But the truths that you have championed and the warnings that you have made are now becoming self-evident to an American public that is only now awakening to the dangers that are upon us. After all of the calumnies and ridicule and outright character assassination that you've endured for trying to warn the country of its danger, no one could blame any of you for throwing up your hands and walking away in disgust.
No way.
But that's not the time to walk away. Now is the time to press our case more firmly and loudly than ever before, because now the tide is finally beginning to turn, and it is turning with a momentum and a decisiveness that is truly awe-inspiring. The philosopher said that the truth goes through 4 stages. First, it is ignored. Then it is ridiculed, then it is viciously attacked, and then it is accepted as self-evident. So congratulations, we're 3/4 of the way there. But I've often remarked at how ironic it would be if the liberties that have been defended by 9 generations of Americans on far-off battlefields would then be carelessly thrown away here at home. Let that not be the legacy of our generation, nor the epitaph of our republic. At another great turning point in our nation's history, Lincoln spoke to Illinois Republicans in words that seem intended just as much for the Tea Party today. It was his famous House Divided speech. I was given to the Republican State Convention, a group like this. And he ended that famous speech with these words. Listen to them and think about how they apply to this Tea Party movement. He said, 4 years ago, we mustered over 1,300,000 strong. We did so in response to a common danger, with every external circumstance against us, of strange, discordant, and even hostile elements. We gathered from the 4 winds and formed and fought the battle through under the constant hot fire of a disciplined, proud, and pampered enemy. Did we brave all then to falter now when that same enemy is wavering and disheveled and belligerent? The end is not doubtful. We shall not fail. If we stand firm, we shall not fail. Wise counsels may accelerate or mistakes delay it, but in the end, the victory is surely ours. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the Tea Party, for standing firm under the constant hot fire of a disciplined, proud, and pampered enemy. Now our hour has come Now let us restore our Constitution, and then let us rescue our afflicted country.
Questions. You know the rules, right? Your name, where you're from, your organization, and your question. If you get into the story, you get the duck call.
My name is J.D. Bennett. I'm with the Central Valley Tea Party. I'm a Marine veteran, and I might not have been born to fight, but I've been bred to fight, and I'm ready to fight for answers for Benghazi. Can you tell the sons and daughters of America what we can do to make that happen?
Agitate in every form that you can find. Don't let the question be forgotten. The truth sometimes takes a long time to come out. I think it was Omar Khayyam who said, the wheels of the gods grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. The truth will come out, and I do not believe it will reflect well on this administration.
Ken Campbell, Lincoln, and by the way, I'm standing next to Igor Berman. You might want to say something about him. Tom, I know you're facing a challenge, a Republican challenge in you. Do you want to say something about that to us?
Well, it's not exactly a Republican challenge. It's a mystery candidate who first went about and actively coordinated moving all of the Democrats out of the race. The consultation and coordination was quite obvious. It's an individual who's never voted in his entire life. He's never even registered to vote until January, when he was brought out here by a group of liberal consultants to try to manipulate this new elections process we have in California to keep the Democrats off the field and to try to flip a district that would never ever vote for a liberal Democrat to try to get it to vote for a liberal Republican. I don't think that they're going to succeed. If they do succeed, we can expect these tactics to be turned against every remaining conservative leader in California until no conservative voices are left either in the congressional delegation or the legislature. But we will not allow them to succeed. They've already seen through this. And yes, I would like to mention a couple of people standing next to you. First and foremost, Igor Berman. If you don't know Igor yet, you will. Well, I see you've already met him. You know Igor's story, and you can imagine how moving it will be to hear that story on the floor of the House of Representatives, warning his adopted country of the direction that it's taking toward the very things that his family spent a lifetime trying to escape from the Soviet Union. And the guy on your other side is Christopher Mitchell, who's running Senate. By the way, he is running the unseat lowest caps, and I think he's got an excellent chance of doing so. And if he looks a little bit like Robert Mitchum, that's not a coincidence.
Hi, Mr. McDonough. My name is Lorraine Humes, and I'm a member of West County, Caucus County Tea Party. My question is, we're sitting, we watch the president taking more and more legislative powers over. Why doesn't the legislature do something? Can't they sue him? And I've heard they don't have standing. Why wouldn't they have standing?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. There are basically two major checks that the Constitution affords the Congress. One is impeachment. Well, with Harry Reid as in control of the Senate, that's simply not a practical thing. the most practical thing we had with the House Republican majority was the power of the purse. But we saw how that failed last fall when we tried to delay Obamacare and the Senate refused to act on our legislation or even to negotiate it. So we have to fall back to the next line of defense, that's the courts. Well, the problem there, as you pointed out, is it's very difficult to get the courts to intervene in a dispute between the legislative and executive branches. Ultimately, the responsibility and the authority to set things right rests with each of us as citizens. And remember, what Reagan said, the Constitution is not the government's document telling the people what we can and cannot do. The Constitution is the people's document telling our government those things we will allow it to do. But the only way to assure that the Constitution will endure is by electing people who have demonstrated a devotion and commitment to upholding that Constitution, even when it's inconvenient to do. Now think about this. Every person who takes up arms in defense of this country and every elected official takes an oath. That oath is not to preserve, protect, and defend the United States of America. It is not to preserve, protect, and defend the United States government. It is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. That is the only pledge, and the reason is the founders knew if we ever lose our Constitution, we will have already lost our country. And that's what Daniel Webster was referring to when he told a group like this, hold fast, my friends, to the Constitution and to the republic for which it stands. Amen. For miracles do not cluster. And what has happened once in 6,000 years might not happen again. Hold fast to the Constitution, for if the American Republic should ever fail, there will be chaos throughout the world. Thank you all. That's our mission.
We got time for 2 more questions. We got one here, and then the gentleman in the back row.
Pam Daniels, Fresno, California. What do you think of your opinion of dividing California into 6 states?
Well, the problem with dividing California into 6 states is you have to find one of those parts that want to stay in California. Look, our state has not been struck down by some mysterious act of God. These are all acts of government. That is all within our power to change as soon as we summon the political will to do so. And I believe that just as the country is going through a new political awakening, so too is the state of California. There is nothing, and I have read the Constitution from beginning to end, there is nothing in the state Constitution that requires that California be governed by idiots. That is strictly our choice, and we can change it at will.
Congressman McClintock, thank you so much for your terrific words. My name is Ken Smith. I'm from the Silicon Valley Tea Party group. And
so you're the one.
I'm one. The question I have, you mentioned the oath of office that you all took. Where do we have in our Congress the congressmen or the group of congressmen who have the absolute guts to file articles of impeachment of President Obama?
Well, 2 things when we discuss impeachment. Number one, that is a very special power that is specifically reserved in the Constitution for high crimes and misdemeanors. That's a very high threshold. Secondly, and by the way, I have said myself that an unprovoked attack against a foreign nation without congressional approval, if that's not an impeachable offense, I don't know what is. But everything else is a more difficult and nuanced matter. Maybe not to all of us in this room, but to many of our fellow citizens. Until we have restored a clear understanding of these constitutional principles with our friends and neighbors, that's going to be, as a practical matter, an impossible thing to do. You know, Lincoln put it this way. He said, the voters are everything. If the voters get their backsides too close to the fire, they're just going to have to sit on the blisters a while. It's a painful experience, but it's a learning experience. That's what our country's going through, and that's where you are making such a monumental difference as you talk to your friends and neighbors, your family and co-workers. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's working.
Very quickly, the last question, our last question of the day.
Hi, Dave Walker, North Bay Patriot and Sonoma County Central Committee. Unfortunately, you find yourself, Congressman, working in the swamp that was originally drained. The founders gave us a way to fix that problem from the outside, to maintain the federal system. Article 5 of the Constitution. Your thoughts on that?
You're speaking of the Constitutional Convention.
Yes, called by the states.
Yeah. There's a knee-jerk reaction to say, oh my God, well they could completely destroy the Constitution, we could have a runaway convention. Bear this in mind. Such a constitutional convention could no more change one jot or tittle on the Constitution than the Congress has been able to do every single day since it first sat. Because whether the amendment comes from the convention or from the Congress, it still must be approved by 3/4 of the states. The provision in Article 5 was established as a safety valve so that if the government became too estranged from the people through their state legislatures could bring it back. It's the people, it's the national equivalent of the initiative process in California that reserves to the people the final legislative authority. And when that's been criticized over the years, I think the best response was that of Howard Jarvis when he said, I would rather be governed by the masses than the asses. Big round of applause for the Congress.
Ladies and gentlemen, did you have a good time today? Did we bring value to this? Did we make a difference here today? Are you going to go out and make a difference in the rest of this nation and this state? Absolutely. Let me tell you something. A couple of real quick things. I just found out something today. The IRS was incorporated in Delaware in July of 1933. It's an incorporation. I didn't know that. And did you know that that corporation doesn't have standing in the state of California? That's an interesting thought. Before we close, I'm going to ask Celeste to close us in a benediction, but before we do, I want to thank my wife for putting up with everything that I do. We'll be married 38 years this year. I'm blessed, she's stuck. And the Tea Party, the people that are on the caucus, the Tea Party caucus members, can I ask you to please stand, the steering committee members? Can I ask you to stand, and if you're up against the wall, take a step out. These are the people in the state that make this happen. And I want to thank each and every one of these people from the bottom of my heart. And in closing, I'd like to turn this over to Celeste. Celeste is, here's something, Celeste, I found out, is you've heard the expression rhino? She's the one that coined that.
Well, there's passion in the room. There's commitment. There's freedom. This is awesome. This is really awesome. Woody introduced me as the person that coined the acronym RHINO, but he forgot to say that I'm also Steve Frank's sister. That congressman that you just heard, he is just absolutely wonderful. The bastion of conservatism. How can somebody don't endorse him? I mean, this is embarrassing, right? So I will encourage all of you to please write a check when you get, if not today, but right when you get home, and write 2 checks. one for Congressman Tom McClintock, and one for Tim Donnelly. Please do so. Will you please bow your heads? Our Heavenly Father, as we met here today to deliberate on important issues, please unharden our hearts and give us the wisdom to make the right decisions. Forgive us for not seeking your wisdom first. Prevent those who practice hatred and division and spread malicious rumors against others from prevailing. Bless the efforts of every single Tea Party member who is here today to be successful. Our country has strayed from principles and faith given to us by our Holy Father in the Ten Commandments and our founding fathers with the U.S. Constitution. We met here in a hope that our efforts can contribute to the restoration of those ideals and principles. Lord, we thank you for your guidance and your blessings to all. Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, I have two real quick announcements. Number one, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the leaders. And we hope that you see myself, Steve, or Lori after this meeting or tonight. And that's the last announcement. Birthday party. We have a Tea Party California Caucus birthday party, hospitality suite, Regency Room C at 9 p.m. tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great time and God bless all of you.